Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Virtual Delegate. It is lovely to see you, and I am delighted to see so many familiar faces coming back and joining us. Remember, this is your home of all things innovative in virtual and hybrid events. Our job is to bring us together as an industry and give you some good, new, interesting ideas to make sure that your next event moves from good to great. And we will keep it interactive as ever. So throughout the episode, let us know who you are and where you're coming from in the comments, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube. We're going out everywhere at this point. I think we're going out to toasters and kettles as well. So let us know where you are based and what you think of the episode. If you've got comments, questions, feedback, or point of inspiration for any of our phenomenal guests today, then put them inside the chat. And remember, we're incentivizing it because incentive travel is a big part of our industry as well. If you leave a comment of any kind, we will choose one of them randomly a little bit later to see who wins one of our virtual delegate chocolate bars. Apparently, they're entirely calorie-free because most people don't eat them because they're not very tasty. And if you don't eat it, there are no calories in it. If you have missed any episodes of the virtual delegate so far, then you have missed loads of amazing stuff about how to build killer content, how to select the world's best platform for your next engaging event. So type the word recordings into the chat or into the comments underneath this video, and we'll make sure that you get sent all of the material that you have missed. So without further ado, I think it's about time that we got started with episode 4 of the Virtual Delegate. Well, I think one thing is for certain, hybrid events are a very real part of our future, but how can we prepare to make sure that they are the very best that they can be? With organizations all across the world now announcing firm plans for structured and long-term working from home strategies, it's obvious that the way that we relate to our customers, to our stakeholders, and to our audiences, whether they be employees, whether they be customers or association members, it's truly changed forever. And while face-to-face will always be our aim and our ultimate goal as event professionals, we're realizing that there truly is an opportunity inside building extraordinary hybrid events. Suppliers, providers, clients, and even venues like the Hybrid by Design ICC Belfast, where we're based for the virtual delegate, have shifted plans and expectations to not just respond to the change that hybrid is building, but to drive that change as well. So how do we get ready to embrace this change? Well, today's guests have got the answers. So let's take a look at what's in store in this week's episode of The Virtual Delegate. Coming up this week on episode 4 of The Virtual Delegate, we explore the hybrid opportunity. We're going to be joined by Oscar Cerizales. He is the Global Executive VP of the Corporate Division at MCI. Kathy Joyce is the Director of Communications with MPI UK and Ireland chapter. And Chief Economist in Ireland with Ernst & Young, it's Neil Gibson. So before we get to our first guest, let's take a look at a few comments. We've got virtual delegate audience members coming in from all across the world. Brenda McCauley is coming in from New Jersey. Brenda, lovely to see you here. I believe Brenda is with Maritz. I'm certain we will see you back in Vegas very soon. Patrick Murray from Helms Briscoe with MPI UK and Ireland is in Barcelona today. Beautiful. I'll not sing the song. Deborah Collins is coming from approximately 90 seconds away from here in Belfast. Apparently, she's in a top secret location. I can tell you exactly where she is, but I won't. I won't take the fun out of it. And of course, a stranger to no one, Michael Dalton from Mic Drop. Easily the greatest name for a business I've ever heard. And we've got people coming in from all over. Ruth Werner coming in from Belfast as well. It is lovely to have so many of you. Now, I promised that this episode was going to explore ways to take your next hybrid and virtual event to the next level. And that is what all of our guests will do. Guest number 1 is Kathy Joyce, Head of Communications at MPI UK and Ireland. Now, Kathy serves on the board as Director of Communications and will be the new incoming Vice President of Marketing and Communications effective July 21. MPI is the largest meeting and event industry association worldwide and has a global community of 60,000 meeting and event professionals, including nearly 14,000 members. We're delighted to be joined by Kathy. Kathy, lovely of you to join us. Where are you coming from today?
Hello, David. I am tuning in from Abu Dhabi today.
Abu Dhabi. Well, I would much rather be there than here, but Kathy, it is still a delight to have you. Tell me, how have you and your team navigated the changes into this virtual world?
Yeah, it's been, I suppose, a challenging year for everyone. The pandemic has certainly accelerated a digital transformation that would have, I suppose, down the line a couple of years earlier. So we've built quite a big team with our chapter this year. I think we're going to have over 40 members on the board. And it's really just, it's all about the member journey, communicating with our members and how to achieve some fantastic events that deliver great content and value to our members.
Now, obviously, hybrid is the buzzword everyone is talking about. For you and the team at MPI, what does hybrid really mean and what does it look like over the next few months?
Yeah, hybrid event, I mean, there's lots of pros and cons to hybrid event. I suppose the main pro being that, you know, it's accessible to everyone. Anyone from around the world can tune in. So we are collaborating a lot more with MPI Global, with our European chapters, with our US chapter, which really gives a greater audience. And then I suppose to really look at the hybrid model as in it's one event, we're creating 2 separate agendas, which is so important, that you're creating just as great a positive experience for your live audience as your virtual audience. So that's what we're really, I suppose you have those opportunities for fantastic speakers that can tune in anywhere in the world. So we have great speakers and delivering greater content for the future of the chapter.
And one thing I know that MPI has exploited really well is this notion that sometimes to get a keynote speaker in from the other side of the world who is an expert or a thought leader in their field, frankly, tens of thousands of pounds and dollars from that can simply be on flying them in. But one hybrid opportunity is that we can get experts from all across the world in a more accessible way. It's become more affordable and more achievable to get people that under other circumstances simply couldn't have attended at our event, never mind spoken at it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the great thing about the hybrid model or virtual events. You can tap into any network. It's inclusive for everyone to join, so no one's missing out on the opportunity. But also, we have fantastic members ourselves that are part of the association. And going into our new chapter year, we'll be focusing on our members and making sure that they have the opportunity to speak at our events. So I think that's a new thing that we will focus on throughout MPI Global as well, to ensure that our members get the opportunity to engage and interact on our sessions.
And tell me, Kathy, what's the mood like in the industry at the minute? Because while so many people are talking about hybrid, there isn't always a clear definition of what that means yet. Of course, we want our events to be safe. We want them to be useful, engaging, collaborative. They also need to be profitable. Is there a set hybrid model yet? Or do you think, are we all still co-creating and designing what the next step might be?
I think we're all co-creating and designing what the next step. For companies that have embraced, I suppose, the digital transformation, have invested in technology, will have a competitive advantage going forward. So I think you have to embrace the hybrid model. It's here to stay. It's it's emerging. And I suppose it's still, people are still teething problems with it as well. We've often logged on to a call and had technical issues, and there's a cost side of it as well. So, the hybrid there's again pros and cons to it, depending on who you're speaking to. If you're talking to a consumer that has a product that they rely on touch, taste, and feel, the hybrid model not necessarily might not be relevant for them. So I don't think hybrid is a component of live. It's not to replace it. We all want to get back to live events. But I think there's also that great opportunity to include everyone with the hybrid model.
And so tell me, what work is MPI doing today to support organizations, to support their members, to make sure that they're ready for the changes that are coming?
We do lots of training programs. So with MPI, there's a fantastic training model to be qualified on hybrid events, on virtual events. And we're working on a global community. We do communities on a monthly basis. Brighton next year will be hosting MPI's EMIC, which is our largest European conference. So we'll be working on that as the host for next year's event. It was due to take place. So there's lots of opportunities with the association to network with buyers and suppliers, build a community and connections, and participate in our events and educational sessions, as well as sponsorship opportunities as well.
I would say it would be remiss of me, Kathy, not to ask, because you and I have both attended millions of virtual events over the course of the last year. Do we think that hybrid and virtual will ever replace the traditional in-person plenary and networking and expo space? Do we think that we're truly looking into the face of a brand new future? Or do you think that actually this is all just terribly exciting at the moment, but in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll find ourselves back in the ballroom meeting in the same way that we always have?
No, I think the pandemic has definitely accelerated a change that the effects will be permanent going forward. But on a positive note, everyone, live events, nothing can replace live events, meeting, networking people, meeting people in person. But I do think that virtual and hybrid will probably replace those meetings that don't need to take place. So, the way we would talk on Zoom, as we mentioned before about sales teams, how we network and interconnect, the digital transformation of Zoom calls, and that will definitely replace then live meetings. But you can't say that the technology will replace live altogether.
Well, I know for sure if I had the choice, I'd much rather be live in Abu Dhabi today. There's no doubt about that. Kathy, stay there. We'll be back to you in just a few moments. Thanks for your great insights. And if you want to find out more about Kathy and her organization's work, then visit mpi.org. They truly are an incredible association that helps serve the industry and move the needle forward in so many different ways. Next up, we're delighted to hear from Oscar Serrazales. Now, Oscar is based in Singapore and has over 25 years experience in the industry. At MCI Group, he serves as the Global Executive Vice President. And Oscar has been a professor at universities in Barcelona, in London, and Milan. But more importantly, today, he's joining us on the Virtual Delegate, which is clearly the position that you've always dreamed of, Oscar. I can tell. So, Oscar, tell me, how are you embracing this virtual and hybrid world? Does it seem like an exciting new future?
Let me think. It's a bittersweet kind of approach. It's really exciting. The way it's defining new business models, the way it's defining the new rules of engagement, a new ecosystem, new players, and again, new opportunities. It's forcing, again, all stakeholders, all players to rethink the way they have been doing business, the way they've been solving problems, what they're trying to achieve. And to me, it's exciting. At the same time, it's accelerating some of the trends. There are no new trends, that actually trends that existed before COVID. So it's kind of an interesting wait and see and careful kind of emotional thing to say.
So obviously those trends have moved incredibly quickly. But as we look into the future of events, Oscar, what do you think is coming down the line? What do we need to be prepared for as event professionals? What do we need to be investing in today?
Well, it's a good question. I would say that my advice would be to think about your business model. And by business model, be careful. That's becoming an empty word in today's world. And remember that business model is the way that how an organization is capturing and delivering value long-term. And I think that you need to take into account all these trends, all these uncertainties that are all around us to redesign your business model. Meaning what? Rethinking your value proposition, your cost structure, your revenue streams, your new audiences, your new channels, of course, your new resources, your new talents, your new organization, and also your solutions portfolio. Look at it from a holistic perspective.
So as we look into the size of the hybrid opportunity in the future, I have to ask a tough question. I think we need to ask it of ourselves. Oscar, are we imagining that the hybrid opportunity is much bigger than it is? Or are we truly looking at a reimagination of the way people and meeting professionals work and engage forever?
Well, no, I think it's not that I think. I know we all have a lot of data from our clients, from research, white papers, etc. This is not the big opportunity. This is a huge opportunity. There is an explosion in terms of the growth of our industry. It's just that we need to think as our customers. So whether you're thinking about a government, a corporation, or an association, they need to activate their audiences around a brand, around a topic, around a product, whatever, right? And of course, a marketeer, a CEO of an association have multiple ways of activating these audiences, multiple channels. And events, whether they're digital, hybrid, face-to-face, any format, they're just one or two or three of all channels that these professionals are using. So it's all about playing with the omni-channel. So what I would say, though, is that my advice would be to think about the art and the science of hybrid, meaning the art and science of building communities, meaning create communities, grow, engage, replicate, track, and of course, monetize.
That intentionality really matters, doesn't it? We can't leave the success of any event to chance. And I think it's ever more true when we talk about hybrid. I suppose we should ask ourselves as an industry, Oscar, are we already behind? Has this accelerated the changes that we should have been investing in a decade ago?
Yeah, I mean, well, absolutely. I think back to my previous point, we're using a lot of empty words. You mentioned something around with being together in hundreds, if not thousands of webinars, and everyone is talking about disruption, business model, agility, VUCA world, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we're really, really good in not walking the talk, right? And I think that, again, back to my point on business models, if you're a destination, a convention center, an agency, if you're in this industry, of course, you need to come up with a business model which is agile, fast, flexible, which is transformative, which is, of course, resilient, adaptable, and sustainable, right? So think about other sectors and other industries. The hybrid is not even an imperative. Hybrid has been there for the last decade or so in retail, in fast-moving consumer goods, or in sports, right? So I think it is nothing new. We have a lot to learn from other industries, and with the different industries are intersecting with our industry. I do believe our industry has more in common now with communication, with advertising, with TV, with media than ever before. So we need to learn a lot, but walking the talk.
And taking action and walking the talk is, I think, when the rubber hits the road, what will define the difference between good and great. And by the way, Oscar, I cannot agree with you more when it comes to all of these buzzwords. If I hear the word disruption one more time, it makes me a little sick in my mouth, if I'm honest. I'm not sure anyone knows what they mean or what they're saying. So I suppose one last question before we move on to our next guest is, if we are to capitalize on the hybrid opportunity, if we are to make sure that we are prepared and ready as event experts moving into the future, what should we be investing in now? Is it hardware? Is it software? Is it people? Or is it a technology that doesn't even exist?
If you ask me, technology. Everyone is talking about technology. And to me, technology is just the enabler. There are thousands, if not millions, of event technologies out there. It's so easy to tap into new technology. And everything is moving so fast that technology, to me, it's not the answer. You need technology, but I would forget technology. I would start with methodologies, and I would start with business models, and I would start with people. And my number one is talents. To me, it's all about the number one to unlearn, the typical unlearn, relearn. That's basic, because we have been doing things for the last decade or so, and because we are biased, we think, oh, let's pivot this from face-to-face to digital to hybrid. Well, that's wrong. So talent, and we need new skills. At some point, reskilling and upskilling is not enough. We need to bring, and again, we need these T-shaped professionals. We need to start thinking in modern outsourcing, collaboration with other industries. So I would start with talent. I will follow with methodologies. So the analog way of thinking and being, another empty word, customer-centric, to be this kind of thing, which what I would say is common sense, and then leave the technology for the professionals.
Superb. Well, look, talent first is music to my ears. So, Oscar, thank you so much. Stay where you are. We will be back with you in just a few moments. If you want to find out more about Oscar, his team, and the work that they're doing, then visit mcigroup.com. And remember, we like to keep the virtual delegate as interactive as possible. So keep your comments coming. And we have got so much coming in. Bridget is saying that necessity is said to be the mother of invention. And we certainly have needed to reinvent ourselves here. Philip Greer is saying, great job, Kathy Joyce. You're a rock star. She is a rock star, I have to say. And who else have we got? Mary Mallon is coming in from the British Council in Northern Ireland. Folks, don't forget to share the virtual delegate feed to your wall, to your channel, to your colleagues inside the industry. And if you've missed any episodes, then just type the word recordings in the comment, and we will make sure that you get any of the episodes that you have missed. Okay, our final guest, and certainly last but not least on this episode of the Virtual Delegate, is Neil Gibson. Neil is Chief Economist with EY in Ireland. He provides insight and analysis to clients across all sectors. He is the lead author of EY's All Ireland Forecasting Report, The Economic Eye, and is a regular media commentator. Now, current areas of focus for Neil include helping firms better measure their true impact and measuring the impacts of both Brexit and, of course, the teeny tiny pandemic that one or two of us might have been talking about over the course of the last few months. But more importantly, the best compliment I can give Neil, he's the only economist in history that I have ever chosen to actually listen to. Neil, thank you so much for joining us on the Virtual Delegate.
Thank you, David. I think that's a worrying trend if you're starting to listen to economists.
Well, look, Neil, EY is one of the world's biggest organizations. I'm fascinated to ask, how have you and your team embraced this virtual world? I know you're already a pretty remote business. People have been successfully working from home for years. Has the pandemic changed that?
It has, yes. It's been very much a learning curve for us and our clients. We knew what was possible. Oscar mentioned it. It's been there for a long time, the ability to work from home, the ability to do a lot of what we do remotely. But it's really accelerated things like signing contracts, doing business remotely. It's allowed us to deploy teams across the world more easily, so bringing more work to the island of Ireland to support our global clients. But I think what the biggest challenge has been, it is an emotional journey. It's already been mentioned by the other speakers. So people experience it differently, and at different times in the year, they maybe feel a little bit differently. Sometimes we need peace and quiet to get on with our work. Other times we desperately need that interaction to maybe provide a bit of inspiration, maybe provoke a thought that we hadn't had before. So the true nature of hybrid is not just the challenge of making the technology and the practicalities work, but getting the psychological side of it working as well, knowing when people need to interact with others, maybe even before they know that, and also making sure that they have peace when they need it, but that inspiration that comes from contact with others when it's required too.
Well, I think given that we have got an economist with us, we have to ask a fundamental question that event professionals have been wondering for years. When we attend an event virtually, there's always this question about, is it the same experience? Do you learn as much? So let's go underneath that, Neil. Can an employee be as productive when they are working remotely or virtually? What do the numbers bear out?
It's interesting. The numbers and the data show quite a journey for that. Some of the early evidence suggested that in the early days of people beginning to work from home, there was a bit of a productivity boost. People became a bit more efficient. Meetings dropped out that they didn't need to go to. They didn't have the commute, so they were starting more energized, straight from their coffee into their work. But actually that tails off a little bit over time. People are good at doing routine tasks at home. They're good at decluttering the diary. But there's a couple of challenges that come with it. One of them is that creativity and inspiration that often comes from an accidental conversation, or physicists talk about the power of collisions, the accidents in your professional life that give you a new train of thought. But it's also the ability to manage yourself and your time effectively. In that hybrid model, and you're at home, many of us, I'm sure, can relate to the fact that there's never an end to the work to be done. So you have to have a lot of discipline to know when you need to recharge, when you need to. So we've had to do, EY, I've done a lot on encouraging people out for walks, to take breaks. It can easily become a little bit, and I think particularly for younger staff just starting their career, to have that sense of discipline that an office can bring, or that watching other behaviors can provide to give you permission to check out or to stop when you need to. And I think that becomes one of the important skills with any form of hybrid working or events, is listening all the time and being able to record and understand how people are feeling and how it's changing for them. Just because someone said they could work at home a year ago doesn't mean that that still feels the same now. Maybe they're beginning to fatigue a little, or finding it a little bit as if it's becoming a bit of a routine. So I think one of the things we remember with the office is it brings an awful lot of randomness to our lives too. The journey in, the coffee, the meeting people. When we go to events, we invariably meet someone we didn't expect we were going to meet, or we hear something we weren't expecting to hear. And that accidental part of the journey is hard to repeat in the home environment. So yes, you can definitely and that's why the talk's all hybrid. Let's bank some of the benefits, getting rid of the clutter we don't need, but let's get more value out of the time that we spend working productively, get more out of every event we go to, get more out of our time in the office, thinking about using those assets a little bit more effectively, decluttering, but still needing to find that inspiration and creativity in our workday.
And you mentioned collisions there, and actually, Neil, it's the perfect way to describe what is a hodgepodge, complex, interrelated, and very cross-hatched industry. When we look at the event space, when we look at conventions and associations, so many of our key contacts have come from a bump in the queue at the registration at an event, or chatting to someone when we're trying to get a fairly mediocre red wine at a networking session, for instance. So I think we know that hopefully that in-person piece will always be a fundamental part of the industry. But when we look outside of that at the minute, should the industry be worried about global performance? When we look at how the economy is shifting and changing, does it look like a fast or a slow recovery is coming? And what impact do you think that will have for event professionals?
Well, the good news is that the recovery is shaping up to be fairly strong globally, because you have this unusual situation of the governments across the world still spending, whilst consumers are beginning to spend again, and businesses beginning to reinvest in whether that's reprofiling the work space or investing in new digital equipment. So you've got all this spending happening at the same time. Now, that has some economic consequences, pushes up prices for one. But what it does mean is that firms are now beginning to have strategic conversations about what does the medium term look like? How do we use our real estate? What way will we be back in the office? And it's important that the industry is in those conversations to remind what it can provide to that journey. Think of the businesses that perhaps won't have the same office space. Will you be the new meeting place? Can you help them provide a different type of meeting and event that actually fills a different niche? You see a lot of those like leadership meetings and sessions where they need to recharge. Think of what firms are really interested in now about adding value to the community and society around them. So having local food or local red wine produce at the event, having entertainment that's locally provided and created, that can provide those firms with a sense of giving back and feeling that they're making some of their social and societal contributions that's becoming so important in this new, what's called ESG reporting, where we're worrying about not just our profits and our bottom line, but our contribution to the planet, to society, to our people. So thinking about what do our staff need? Think about when you go to events, how we often think of packing them full of things, and that you watch the room and you see that some of the great value is just the people mingling and chatting. Why does everyone want to stay a little bit longer at the bar or at the coffee table or in my case, the breakfast rolls? Now that maybe is something we're going to have to think about. You're going to have people to back together in your events who maybe haven't been in this space for quite some time. Maybe we'll need to bake in a little bit more time for that. Maybe it's just connecting again. And in a sense, we have to plan carefully that we don't over-engineer what an event looks like. Maybe it's just the space and the time together that's the most important commodity of all. So I think the bit of advice I would give is there will be money being spent. There are firms desperate to reconnect with their people, their staff, many of them desperate to thank their staff. Think of the rewards that our frontline health workers, our teachers all need at the end of this. How do we give them that right experience? And probably for the industry, an important point I would make is collecting the information after the event becomes even more important. What bit did they really value? What is it that really gave them that sense of inspiration or creative thinking that maybe they didn't expect? And then react to that, because I think we're coming out of this a little bit emotionally different than we went in. So we might find that people enjoy different parts of an event or a meeting setting than they did previously. I think it's important to try and stay close to your clients even after they've been with you to see which bits worked best, because maybe there'll be some tweaks in just exactly what people are looking for from the event space after this.
Well, that feels good to me. In a post-pandemic world, events will become even more important. Neil, I knew there was a reason why you're the only economist I've ever chosen to listen to. Stay there, Neil, because I want to bring all of our guests back. Delighted to have Kathy and Oscar joining us as well. Oscar, do you think we should be excited about the next 12 months, about what hybrid is bringing, or is that too soon? Is the real hybrid opportunity much further down the line?
So the good news is, let me put it that way. A digital event, what we're doing today, it's super scalable. We have an economist. He will tell you about the marginal cost. The marginal cost tends to zero. Once you have this recording, you can stream to a million people, right? Now, if we do this face to face, that's not scalable. Now, the experiential level goes up. Now, hybrid, it's either the great opportunity where the two worlds collide and intersect, the scalability and the experience, or it could be a really complex world. And where we are right now, it's very, very complex, combining everything. And I think that short term, my answer to you is careful, it's complex. We're still learning and testing how to be effective and efficient. But long term, if we are smart enough to connect the scalability with experience, then is where the magic will happen.
So, Kathy, if Oscar and Neil are to be believed, then the future is incredibly bright. Do you think as an industry, are we ready for the hybrid opportunity?
Absolutely. I think, as Oscar said, there's still lots to learn, over the next couple of years in time. But I'm very excited for the future of the events industry. And it's definitely given us this shift to be very creative and the events that are going to take place over the coming years to come. So, there is that demand for live and hybrid events. And I think it will come back in the next couple of months. We're going to see quite a shift in the market.
So, Neil, one final question to you. If you were to put a date on it, and we'll not hold you to this, we'll just bet the entire farm and house on it. Do you think that we will be closer to having in-person events in the way that we did 2 years ago? Do you think is that 1 year away, 3 years away, 5 years away?
Oh, within a year, I don't think it'll be that far away, because the costs of being apart are building up. So there are lots of people who desperately need to see their suppliers again, need to meet up with old friends, or just thank their colleagues. So we're desperately in need of that. Every day and week that goes by adds to that sort of slow cost of this disconnect. So I think you'll see it sooner rather than later. You can see it in the eagerness for people to get back to concerts, to sporting events. People want to be back out. I have 5 concert tickets booked for the next 12 months, so we better be allowed back in each other's company.
Well, I'll take one of them if it's going, Neil. Folks, thank you so much for coming. Kathy, Oscar, and Neil. It has been such an amazing opportunity to hear all of your perspectives on what the hybrid opportunity presents to all of us. Let's see if we can have a little virtual high five. Virtual high five, everybody. Let's see if this works. Virtual high five, virtual high five, virtual. It was a terrible idea. I deeply regret even trying it. Thanks to all 3 of you. I really do appreciate it. And of course, for all of you watching at home, tell us what you'd like to see in a future episode of the Virtual Delegate. Have you got an amazing case study that would knock our socks off? Have you got a brand new innovation or technology that you would love to share with the industry? Well, we want to hear from you. Make sure that you tell us about it, and you could be featured on a future episode of the Virtual Delegate. But tell your friends and colleagues in the industry as well. This is the one place for bright new ideas about how to take your next virtual and hybrid event to the next level. I think it's about time we've decided who won our virtual little chocolate bar. I'm going to look away, so that, because we've got an economist in the house, this has to be fair. I'm going to look away and choose someone at random, and this person will be our winner, and it is Irene Hamilton. Irene, congratulations. You've won a delicious chocolate bar. Send me a little private message and I'll make sure that we get it to you. Folks, we will be back here next week with another brand new episode of the Virtual Delegate. In the meantime, take care, be good, and I'll see you next time.